Hello there, my name is Paolo and I am here to ask you a couple of questions. Have you ever asked yourself, what does the future of education look like? As of the making of this video, we are currently in the middle of a global pandemic and are therefore unable to gather in large crowds, and we have to follow strict social distancing guidelines. As a result, going to school physically has been quite difficult, as many schools have opted to move over to a virtual platform and have classes online. Now let me ask you another question. Have you heard of the Learning Design and Technology Department of SCSU? They used to be known as Educational Technology, or EdTech for short, but recently changed their name to LDT, Learning Design and Technology, to reflect the design aspect of their field. Now, LDT courses have been online well before the pandemic happened. So when the pandemic did hit, a lot of educators from K-12 and higher education institutions looked to LDT for some guidelines on how to move their face-to-face classes to a virtual platform. Now, LDT courses covers many aspects of learning, design, and technology. LDT courses offer courses in instructional design, virtual and augmented reality, game design, mobile learning, as well as multimedia design and research. Now, my third question is, what do you think you can do with a master's degree in learning, design, and technology? We've reached out to a couple of individuals who had much success in their lives through their learning and design technology knowledge. My fellow teammates, Dina, Cameron, and Ben, interviewed them for you to see just how far you can take what you've learned from LDT.
Please tell us what's your name and your job title and the organization and company that you work for.
So my name's Peter Vandenhagen, and my job title is instructional designer, and I currently work for a company called Palo Alto Networks that's based out of Santa Clara, California.
Okay, so full name is Elizabeth Damiano. I work for a clothing brand called Cabby, and it's women's clothing. And my job there is that I'm at the home office, and I am the LMS administrator and digital learning specialist.
My name is Liesel, and I work as an instructional designer accessibility expert, and I play different roles depending on which contract I'm working with. First and foremost, the gig that pays the bills is with CCC Accessibility Center, and it's hosted at Butte Community College up north from us, from San Diego and San Francisco. And it's a grant from the Chancellor's office. And I also subcontract with other institutions in community colleges and districts up and down California.
I'm Dr. Daniel Novak, professor of clinical medical education at the Keck School of Medicine at the University of Southern California.
Could you give us a description of what you do and is significant in the company?
I work specifically with faculty and staff professional development or training surrounding creating inclusive learning environments that are accessible to students with disabilities, which ultimately helps all students. So I design, develop workflows to improve the participant or the user experience, and it's kind of like a jack of all trades.
It's a fairly large instructional design team that we have. And actually on this team, they break out the content developers from the instructional designers. So I'm on the instructional design piece of it. So I joined in late February, so I've only been there for about 8 months so far. So what happens is the content developers, most of them come from in-person learning programs where they actually taught technical courses, and they're trying to move a lot of these technical courses, these in-person courses, to online courses because obviously it's more people get access to it, it's more affordable, and so forth. So they give us, usually they give us the PowerPoints that they created as part of their training. And our job is to take those PowerPoints and create graphics for them and turn them into really good e-learning, create assessments, stuff like that, turn them into e-learning modules and certifications.
I guess because my job title is kind of a two-parter. On the one half of it, I actually go into the LMS as the administrator, and I run the whole thing. I organize it, I make sure that it's up to date, I ensure that everyone who needs the learning system has access to it in a timely manner. I try to fix glitches and things like that, add content to it, etc. And just all the management of it. And for about 3,000 to 3,500 people in 3 different countries. So that's the first half of it. And then the second half of it, as the digital learning specialist, I create e-learning content for those 35-ish hundred people.
And my work is predominantly concerned with supporting the transition to active learning exercises in our medical school and MD program.
With the LDT program, how has it prepared you for this position in the company or the institution?
One thing I think the LDT program does an excellent job of doing is really systematically taking a person through the dimensions of instructional design. So fundamentally, instructional design is about aligning objectives, content, and modality in such a way as to really help students move through these things systematically and to come out in a way that with the kinds of thinking that we need them to have at the end of this, and the kinds of abilities we need them to have at the end. And I think the LDT program really does a great job of helping people understand that process and also how to apply that process in real world contexts, whether it's in schools, in higher education, or in industry.
Gosh, I kind of stumbled into training more as an instructor-led back in a previous job that I had for a long time. And then when they moved to an LMS, I started getting into more e-learning so that we could just distribute certain training to everybody really easily and quickly and efficiently and track it as well. So while I was doing that, I found that I wanted to actually learn a lot more about how these things work and how to create e-learning with different authoring tools and then also, the principles of it as well. But then it was in an industry that didn't have a whole lot of, it's not to say that there wasn't any space for it, it's just that it was kind of a niche industry, and the way that most organizations did their training in that industry was either through their own, proprietary e-learning systems or their own, just instructor-led training. I'd say more often than not, it's that. And the job I was at before wasn't really opening too much in terms of the pathway to grow in this area. They really just had like a few basic compliance trainings that needed to be done every year. Basically, what it came down to was just wanting to grow in the area of e-learning. So that's how I ended up going to the LDT program. And once I was done there, I felt like, okay, I've had all these great experiences, and now I have a lot more to say in an interview that could be helpful in different industries. So that's kind of the story of how I got here.
So let's start with the how did we get here? So, or how has LDT led you to this position? So LDT provided me with the foundations, the learning theories, and understanding the learning science of motivation and just learning, right? So our work as instructional designers is to provide information in the most effective way. And if you know how to engage your learners in meaningful ways, you can absolutely motivate them to learn more.
Yeah, so I probably should just step back and sort of give you some context on where I was and what I wanted to do. So I was a technical manager at software companies for quite a few years, and it was challenging and it was fun, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, and I knew that for a long time. And I looked back at some point I just looked at it and said, is this really what I want to do? And I really found that I was interested in the learning side of things. Like whenever I was hired people or develop people or put processes, like I really got into how I could document it and put training and put processes in place. And so when I wanted to do a change from my career and do something else, it seemed to me like learning technology was a good path to go in, because I already had the technology background and I had a passion for learning. So how do I sort of pull these two together? Um, and so that's where the LDT program came in, because I needed something to like a bridge to get me from all my skills and experience that I had to where I wanted to go. And obviously I couldn't have done that without some type of education program to help me bridge that gap. And so that's where the LDT program came in really helping me, sort of the stepping stones that I needed to be able to cross over and get to where I am right now.
Where do you see the instructional design or LDT going in the future?
I would like to see it going more in the area of like AR and VR even. I'm sure that there are instructional designers out there doing that, but there are many other industries where it would be hugely beneficial to be able to, have training combined with mixed reality of some sort. And I imagine that it probably will go there at some point. I don't know how long it'll take for that to filter down to the average instructional designer who's putting stuff up on, Udemy or something, or into university programs. But I really hope that it makes it there.
I'd love to make a prediction about virtual reality or any of those kinds of things. We're just not seeing it yet. Like, there hasn't been an explosion in adoption of virtual reality in higher education yet. We may see it in 3 to 5 years, but I just think the cost to benefit rate, if COVID had happened in 2030, maybe after 10 years of virtual reality gradually getting cheaper and more available, we would have had a better uptake of some more exotic technologies to facilitate the feeling of being in a class. But just where we are now, technologies like Zoom and all that are really where it's at, and video conferencing technologies are really where we're kind of not stuck, but where we're stationed at the moment.
Since I come from a technology background, when I took the course, I was really excited about like AR and VR and AI and all these sort of hot terms and technology terms and how those are being applied. And I don't see really very much of that being used in the real world right now. It's really very production oriented, and it's really about just getting content out and getting it out quickly. I think if you just talk about instructional design, I don't see it as an area where there's a lot of pushing the sort of cutting edge on it. And I don't know if anything's going to change like that in the future. I do think this tool Evolve is kind of a cool tool that people are using now. So so maybe some technologies like that maybe are going to keep coming out, but I think it's all about trying to make people more productive and trying to make the courses as sort of snazzy as possible.
Yeah, I see it definitely. It should now, and this is just from the California Community College perspective. There's 116 community colleges that I work with, and instructional design is not something that's baked in. There aren't very many instructional designers per college. You would be lucky to even have one. So I think that now that we've moved online, there's more need, more guidance, more support. So for my skill set of repackaging face-to-face or on ground, classes and moving them online and repackaging it for the online environment has been really helpful. So that skill set can definitely translate. Maybe it's happening in industry too, right? Where you have to apply everything that you've learned, but I see it definitely in higher ed. It's a need. There's need for instructional designers, especially with those of accessibility skill set. So that's just, accessibility is the way you format or you design your documents, your instructional materials, so that students of disabilities can access it. And that's super, super rare. It's like having a unicorn.
Hey there, it's Paolo again. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you were able to get some inspiration and learn a little bit more about learning design and technology. And we hope to inspire you to follow us in the field. Well, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in class. Bye.